Thank you, Judge Zabel. That was lovely. I'm still getting used to the fact that one person really can change the world. So thank you for that reminder. And for me, that person was John, my husband. It's a great pleasure to be here this evening with Equality Florida. Thank you for honoring me with the Voice for Equality Award. I'm humbled to be recognized in this way, and I gratefully accept this award in memory of my husband, John. For much of my life, I didn't use my voice to speak up about or fight for what matters. I was content to let others do that for me. Other individuals and organizations like Equality Florida. All too frequently, I spoke out simply by writing a check. It took love, marriage, and death for me to find my voice. I met John, the love of my life, in 1992. We built a life together in Cincinnati, and we were the lucky ones. Our families loved us unconditionally. We had a great circle of friends. We never lost a job. We never lost a home. And we were never attacked simply because of who we are. Our life was turned upside down in 2011, though, when John was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Less than 2 years later, John was bedridden in at-home hospice care, and I was his full-time caregiver. Caring for John was scary. It was tiring, and it was overwhelming. But it was also the greatest privilege of my life. After all, when you love someone, you take care of them, no matter what. Then my hero, Edie Windsor, won in the Supreme Court of the United States when that court struck down part of the Defense of Marriage Act. At that moment, I hugged and kissed John and said, "Let's get married." And luckily, he said yes. After more than 20 years together, we wanted to marry and make our promises to love, honor, and protect each other public and legal. We wanted to spend John's remaining days as husband and husband, not legal strangers. Unfortunately, we couldn't simply marry at home in Cincinnati because of Ohio's ban on same-sex marriage. Because John was bedridden, we had to charter a medical jet. We flew to Baltimore Washington International Airport, where we parked on the airport tarmac and were married by John's aunt, Paulette. By that time, ALS had stolen from John not only the ability to move, but most of his ability to speak. He could say only a few words at a time, but nothing more. Hearing John say, "I thee wed," was the happiest moment of my life. And that was all we wanted, simply to get married and to have our federal government acknowledge our existence. Then friends introduced us to a civil rights attorney in Cincinnati, just 5 days after we married. In our first meeting, Al pulled out a blank death certificate and said, "Now guys, I'm sure you haven't thought about this, because who thinks about a death certificate when you've just gotten married? But do you realize when John dies, his last official record as a person will be incorrect? Ohio will say he's unmarried, and Jim, your name will not be there as his surviving spouse." Our hearts broke, and then we got angry. So we filed suit in federal district court to demand recognition of our lawful out-of-state marriage on John's impending death certificate. And we won. Yes. John died 3 months to the day after that ruling, but he died knowing that the state we call home must acknowledge our marriage on his death certificate. And unfortunately, the state of Ohio eventually appealed. I continued the fight, though, because I had to live up to my commitments to love, honor, and protect John. I had no other option. I'd made promises to John, and I intended to keep them. I had to be John's voice. What started out as a very personal fight for John and our marriage turned into something much larger. Well, more accurately, I was finally able to think about the bigger picture. After several years of not thinking about the future, because the future meant John's death, I finally could consider the future. I realized that I was also the voice for people across the nation, people who wanted nothing more than to exercise their right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. people who wanted our country to live up to its promise of equality. I never, ever dreamed I would end up in the Supreme Court along with more than 30 other plaintiffs from Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Michigan, standing up for equal justice under law. And you all know how that's turned out. Love did indeed win. I'm humbled to be part of such a momentous change in our country, and I'm still getting used to what happened on June 26th and my place in it. People call me a hero, a pioneer, a courageous man. I don't think of myself in those ways. I simply think of myself as someone who was lucky enough to fall in love and keep my promises to the man I loved. I'm also someone who finally found his voice. But I know our fight for equality isn't over, and I will continue using my time, my energy, and my voice to work toward the day when no kid grows up feeling alone, feeling different, or feeling scared. I look forward to the day when every American is able to live his or her authentic life. I look forward to the day that a couple who exercises their constitutional right to marry can't then lose a job, be kicked out of their home, or worse, because of it. That's when our country will have lived up to its promise. Thank you, Equality Florida, for continuing to fight for all of us, for helping create that world we all deserve. As an organization, you likely don't get the thanks you deserve, the kind of gratitude I've experienced across the country. People frequently stop me to say thank you or explain what this ruling means to them or someone they love. They show me their wedding rings. They introduce me to their children. They ask for photos. They cry. They tell me stories, or they simply hug me because they can't find the words. Young people have thanked me for helping them find the courage to come out, for showing them that happiness is possible, and for giving them hope. I'm happy to be their voice. There's no better way to spend my time and energy than by speaking up for those who can't, by fighting for those who feel scared and alone, by standing up against hatred. I was John's voice when he could no longer speak, and I'll be a voice for equality for all Americans until it's no longer needed. Thank you again for this wonderful award.